myself looking organized. Sunday, almost 2 o'clock, and have I accomplished anything today? No, I have not. I just warmed up my coffee. We've been in Jackson Hole on Jackson Hole time, and so we all slept really late. Oh, where's my darn coffee? Hold on. It's not. Oh. So what I really would like to talk about, but I'm not going to because this is more pressing, this is important, is the fact that the Wolfpack beat Chapel Hill last night. Can we just talk about that for a minute before we talk about TikTok divorce? That was spectacular. And before you go going crazy, let me just show you a little something. Let me show you a little something here, okay? You ready? Okay, get yourself ready. Let me flip over my thing. I want you to look right here. Oh, shit, shoot. Hang on. Do you see that? Do you know what that is? That is my degree from Carolina right there. So before you say I'm a spoil sport, that mirrored one. And then this is my NC State degree. Ha ha! Go Pack. You're not on my video. No, I mean, it's facing me, not you. The quickest way to get rid of teenagers is to start a live video. FYI. I'm getting ready to go on a walk. Yes, I'm going to exercise. So shocking, I know. My daughters, everybody's going to be annoyed at me. I thought we'd sit outside, but darn wind chimes are blowing a gale out there. Well, it is sort of nice. Let's see. Let's see here. Is this sports ball? What does that mean? I don't know this. Oh, I can't sit up here. It's too much. There's no signal. Okay. So let's talk about kind of squeaky. Let's talk about TikTok. Did you know that TikTok might be getting a divorce? This is like news. So you might say, well, I remember something about this. So there was discussion about this last year. And then in 2020, there was a big hoopla about getting rid of TikTok. And look, people just want to talk about the weather. What is St. Patrick's Day? And why is it now like a national holiday? TikTok will never get banned. They wipe off my camera. Well, and I will say, I don't know if you're right, but it is a very interesting conversation. And I think most of us don't know. So my initial reaction when I was like, they shouldn't ban TikTok. That's freedom of speech. And I might still think that way. So my goal is not to tell you how to think, but my goal, thank you, Catherine, is to hear all the perspective, all the potential sides and avenues, and think about it yourself. So the last few hours I've been researching because I'm a dork. So don't bash the Irish. So when you think about TikTok, you think, okay, well, you might not even use it. I don't use TikTok. And there have been studies that have asked Americans. 31% of Americans said there should be a nationwide ban on TikTok. Now, there are a lot of people that just don't like social media because they don't like social media. My own school system is suing maybe Facebook and Instagram or something because they think it's bad for children. Now, that's a whole nother topic and one that I'm not it's interesting to me because I kind of think then parents should maybe monitor their children on these things. But anyway, another about the same amount, 31% say no, it shouldn't be banned. We should, 31 said yes, it can be banned. 35% say we oppose the ban. But people who use it on the daily, 73% oppose it being banned. Okay, so if you use TikTok, you clearly like the TikTok. Now, what's happening is TikTok is owned by a Chinese company called ByteDance, B-Y-T-E, not like Byte. And what the United States is saying, and this morning it's going to a vote in the Senate. Who knew the Senate worked on a Sunday? I had no idea. I thought they just drove around in like cars and went to brunch in D.C. But anyway, what the United States officials are saying is that there are 170 million users on TikTok. Did you know in 2020 there were 100 million? That's some good growth. So the 170 million people on TikTok, that there's this thought that Chinese, government is going to come in and gobble up all the personal information of these Americans and do what with it? I have no idea. Right? So I haven't been able to find any evidence that has happened or might happen. Okay. So but again, I'm not going to give my opinion. I'm trying to be more like Pew Research. People that oppose the bill say, well, what the hell happened to free speech? Like, we live in the United States, and TikTok a couple years ago did all these steps to safeguard the data of American users, and nobody's asked us for the data. But if somebody did ask us, we actually wouldn't give it. You don't think that other platforms collect your information. I guess it's because the fact that TikTok is owned by the Chinese, and Meta, which has Facebook and Instagram, is owned by Zuckerberg, who is not Chinese. And Zuckerberg, if we're going to be honest, Zuckerberg and, Meta and YouTube have the most to gain if this went through, right? Because if you got rid of TikTok, which happened in India in 2020, they banned TikTok. Those users, those 170 million people moved over. Probably a lot of them were duplicated. They moved over to using YouTube Shorts or Instagram or Facebook Reels, right? Which we're going to get into who likes it and who doesn't. But anyway, we'll get into that. But let's pay attention to who likes it and who doesn't, and maybe why not. Because, again, it's important to figure out this information for yourself, right? One bit I thought is that, there has been no evidence reported that ByteDance is going to share this information of Americans. But I think what a concern that seemed valid to me is that if China ain't United States. We don't have any Kim Jong-un over here. Or Putin. So if the governor came down here, I'll tell you a story. So during COVID, I did a funny post. Comedy is my specialty. People really struggle with comedy. Like recently in my little town, I put up something like Edenton's getting a new grocery store, like a Whole Foods, and I made this fake little meme picture. Well, this social media person in the town went nuts. Like, this is a lie. I'm like, but it was a joke. So a couple years ago during COVID, I made this meme, and it said, governor's office has just stated or issued a law, which isn't exactly how it works. So if you knew a little more about government, you would know that couldn't happen, that all children are going to have to be held back because of COVID. And I put that up first thing in the morning, maybe about 8. Well, by 9:15, I'm not kidding you, a representative from the governor's office had called me on my cell phone and said, take that down. Will you please take that down? It's causing a lot of problems for us. And I said, no, I won't take it down. But if you lived in China and Joey Kim said to you, Adrian, motherfricker, take that down. Well, if Adrian didn't take it down, her Fanny is going to prison. Why did you say that, Missy? Because I thought it was funny. And most people, when they read something like that, they might think, you know what? I should do my due diligence and maybe see if this is true. And I think that's the other thing is I want people, if they read something or see something, take a deep breath, stop a minute, and do your own research. Do a little digging, do a Google image search, maybe look for another news source. Just the same way I say to my children, if I say, let's go, this is what they do. I can't find my shoes. One thing that would help is if you actually looked for the thing that you're missing. You have to look for your shoes. So don't go crying to me that you can't find something. People are not that smart. Well, that's why I'm here to help. Okay, let me get back on it. So in 2020, the last time this happened, where they were trying to get a ban to go through on this whole no TikTok in the United States, China fired back and said, well, fine. If you ain't going to let us have TikTok, then we're going to charge you a tariff on your exports. Now, did you know the majority of Apple products are made in China? Yes, they is. So that didn't work. But on Wednesday, 352 members voted in favor of passing H.R. 7521, Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act. So 352 voted for it and 65 voted against it. Now, again, if this is upsetting to you or you didn't like this vote, I would encourage you to actually vote, right? Because 60% of our country doesn't vote. So if you are one of those people that doesn't vote and you have an opinion about this, zip it. Now, today, again, it's headed to the Senate. Well, TikTok, and this is sort of wonderful to me, TikTok is pissed. ByteDance is done in. This was like totally just under the radar, and China did not know about it. Now, I don't know how you could be an American and not be like, go USA. Like, that's sort of awesome, So TikTok did this big campaign, a last-minute campaign to save themselves. But it is blown up in their faces. I mean, it is bad. Now, all these people are mad over my joke 4 years ago that hasn't applied to them about people having to repeat the grade during COVID. The ship has sailed. It's done. So TikTok this week, not only did they do a big alert, they had this fellow whose name is Xu Zhu. He's the CEO of TikTok. And he came on and said, this legislation, if signed into law, will lead to a ban of TikTok in the United States. And this is on Wednesday afternoon after it happened that morning. And they said, you have to reach out to your congressman, right? We want you to do that. And so their app, the TikTok app, and I'm not on TikTok, so I didn't see this. The TikTok app featured this full screen prompt so users would enter their zip codes, right? And then they would immediately get the number back for their congressperson so they could call them and urge them against this TikTok ban. 170 million people get this. Now, this is kind of awesome that they did that, right? Yes, exactly, Kimberly. So Kimberly just said it's not banned if the company sells. That's why I said this is a divorce. It just means that they ain't allowed to own it anymore. It can be owned by an American, but not any Chinese. So anyway, what happened when they put that up on the, TikTok app? Do you know what happened? Millions, I don't know how many, people started calling the congressman. And you might say, well, Adrienne, how does that help them? Well, Congress members were like, holy cow, we're sort of seeing what could be a problem with the TikTok. Because now TikTok, just the threat, this Chinese company has managed to utilize an app and shut down the phone system at Congress. That's kind of a concern, right? So TikTok said, one staffer said, I mean, you know who was calling us? It was kids at recess. It was kids at lunch. Kids were passing the phone around. You could hear what was happening in the cafeteria. It was a total debacle. One child threatened self-harm unless they got their TikTok. Another one pretended to be a Congress's son. Congress member's son. Well, after a staffer said, you know what, can you give me your name? Let me record your message. The young caller, who they said was maybe, I don't know, young teenager, said, well, can I comment without leaving you my information? And the senior staffer said to the child, protecting your private information is exactly the point of this legislation. Right? Oh my gosh, this is like being in a slow burning pit. How can y'all still be arguing about something? No one is required to be here. You're not required to be on TikTok or the Facebook or the Instagram or the YouTube. Just go find something else to do. It's pretty. It's a Sunday. Go on a walk. Okay, now, will it get passed in the Senate today? Will it get passed? Biden is saying, if it gets through, I will sign it into law. Trump is now saying, I'm against this. Even though Trump in 2020 tried to ban the app by an executive order. So this is where you got to get sneaky. You've got to get wily. You have to say, well, Trump, I love Trump, and Trump doesn't want to get some water. Trump doesn't think it's a good idea, so I don't think it's a good idea. Well, then you have to say to yourself, well, why did Trump think it was a terrible idea in 2020? Right. Need some water. The mountain air. So Trump says, well, I've changed my mind. I don't like TikTok anymore. And the real reason he doesn't like TikTok is because there was a documentary that came out, I think in 2022, and it was about the fact that this person said that Meta was really responsible for the reason that Trump lost the election. So that's sort of interesting. The majority leader, who is Chuck Schumer, has said, he has not said what he's going to do. So I think that's pretty important to know, you know? So what those calls yesterday did was, let's say that it just gives China a lot of concern. You don't think it was his major concern? No, I don't either. But I mean, an executive order to ban something is an executive order to ban something. Now he said at the time, or now he said, if we ban TikTok, all it's going to do is help Facebook. which he does call an enemy of the people because he thinks Zuckerberg, is against him. But I don't think most people on TikTok are going to move to Facebook. And that's somebody that's on Facebook and not TikTok. So listen, Beijing says the United States is weak and they are doing this because they cannot compete with us. And there's no evidence there's no evidence that China is using this information in any way, right? I do think it's interesting that the United States was a founding member of the Freedom Online Coalition, 39 nations that advocate for this international adoption of an internet that's free of censorship or political disruption. I think that's I think we really want that. But on the other hand, China is already doing it. So it's like, do two wrongs make a right? You have to decide, should we do that? And what is China doing? In 2020, in one day, 39,000 games disappeared from the Apple Store in China in one day. One day. China has this thing called the Great Firewall, and apps have always been not allowed there, but there's been a way to get around them. So Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, they've been blocked for years in China. So there's this part of me that says, they're already doing it to us. What do I care about doing it for them, But before, the Chinese could go into the Chinese app store and they could use a different VPN, and then that would get them like this loophole, right? Well, now China has ordered Apple that they have to register these foreign apps. And a few months ago, and I think it was December 2023, the Wall Street Journal reported, China now has said no more iPhones in government offices or government-backed agencies. And just that report in the Wall Street Journal alone made Apple's stock drop $200 billion. $200 billion. So here's the new rule with China and Apple. All apps have to possess a valid internet content provider filing number. Games must secure an approval number. Books and magazine apps have to secure an internet publishing permit from China's National Press and Publication Administration. Religious apps, they have to get an internet religious information permit from China's National Religious Affairs Administration. I mean, this is nuts, right? News apps, you have to have an internet news information permit from the cyberspace admin of China. I mean, you want to talk about some censorship. You'll never hear the phrase, just Google it in China. You can't use Google Maps. I have a friend who lives in China, and I was texting her, and I was like, what's the deal? Don't use Western news. Well, good. I'm glad you're listening, Nicole. I was talking to a friend, texting a friend from China about some of this stuff, and said, there's no Gmail, there's no Google Maps, there's no nothing, all because of this excessive internet censorship, right? What they call it in China, which we sure hope it's not here. Yes, I agree. Both times this has been right before presidential election. I agree. So it's interesting because the idea is that if you got rid of TikTok, you're going to lose the young voters. But if President Biden wants to get rid of TikTok, he's the one that can benefit most from having TikTok gone, and he supports it, right? Having our zip codes coordinated with our representatives isn't a concern. I agree, Lynette. It's interesting. I mean, I think that we have to talk about it. So this Great Firewall Project is part of the Golden Shield Project. And the purpose of that is to control the internet within China, leaving access to only content that complies with these strict government policies, right? And they block websites, they do keyword filtering, monitor the activity of internet users. I mean, it's a concern. And they have this very sophisticated surveillance system. It's the Chinese internet police. I mean, you have, just for a minute, think about this. The Chinese internet police, they have tens of thousands of people that all they do all day long is monitor what is being said online to neutralize opinions, and they delete entries that are unfavorable to the authorities. So if I put up something on Facebook and my governor doesn't like it, he can't take it down, right? He has to call me and ask. Now, Facebook can take it down, but he can't take it down. So it's kind of a big deal, right? There's this group called the Freedom House, and they do this annual report on, like, they call it Freedom of the Net. And they do country rankings. And China is the worst abuser of internet freedom, which I don't really understand considering how North Korea is. But anyway, since the pandemic, China has really tightened down on things. And I guess with, blaming whoever the thing came from Wuhan, China decided they were going to stop that business. Now, think about this. Your hat makes you look like a Mario Kart character. Good, Phyllis. This is my summer hat. It's warm out. Oh, happy to my brother-in-law. Last year, Chinese app developers overtook the United States. Right? So there are more apps coming out from China than here. China is making billions of dollars in global markets, in our market, right? So China is coming over to us and making a killing. Yet China restricts the access in its own digital space. So then at that point, there's, this is like a flip-flop game or a seesaw. At that point, why wouldn't we do the same thing to China? Why are we going to let them make a ton of money off us and they're not going to let us make a ton of money off them? So when they say to us, well, you're a wimp, what was the quote? You can't compete. You're, bullying us. You can't compete globally. Then, well, you're doing the same darn thing. I mean, their developers, ByteDance, Alibaba, Baidu, Tencent, 95% of Apple products are made in China, and China does not want people to use them there. A fifth of the revenue of Apple comes from being in China. A fifth. A fifth. So in China, you can't get Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Blogger, Tumblr, Blogspot. You can't see the New York Times, the Financial Times, the Economist, the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, Google News, Wikipedia, YouTube, Netflix, or Vimeo. That's a pretty big deal. So if it today, the vote in the Senate says, okay, well, yes, we're going to ban it, it would mean that ByteDance isn't getting shut down. No more TikTok. They're going to say to ByteDance, you have to sell it to someone. Well, Zuckerberg knows he can't buy it because that'll be against the whole, you have a a monopoly on tech. So then you have to find somebody else to buy it. Well, then the buyer wouldn't have access to the algorithm of TikTok, which is how you get 50 million people every day spend 90 minutes on the app a day. And that is because of an algorithm. That is not just because people love TikTok. Like there's 1.3 thousand people watching me right now, right? And you might think, well, that's a measure of her popularity. No, it's not. It's a measure of whatever the social media platform decides they're going to push. Are they going to push Adrian? Or are they going to push, the 20-something that's pregnant with her 19th child that looks great and lives in Nicaragua? I mean, it's a game. And I'm in the game just like y'all are in the game. But the difference is I know I'm in the game. The reason I don't do TikTok is because of Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast says that you ain't making any money on the TikTok. So anyway, I don't know what they should do. I think people should vote. And if you want to have an opinion about this, you better go vote for the next congressman or whoever you voted for. Then you can talk to them about what you want. I think that's always the most important thing. I was going to put up my thing, Jiggy. So carry on, people. Tonight is 9 p.m. Autism Mom Trifecta night, which is always a fun conversation. And we're going to be talking about not China, but talking about traveling with a neurodiverse person and how that was super fun and learning. You have a college student missing. So I've heard about the college student missing. I think the college student was in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm thinking that's probably the same one you're talking about. It was on the nightly news last night. And I was saying to my husband, this college student, I guess their fraternity went to visit, and whose page are y'all on? My page tonight. The college student was out with a fraternity and ended up in Luke Bryant's bar, and they said, oh, you gave him too much to drink. But they said, no, he only had one drink. And they made him leave the bar. They escorted him out. And then he was with the friends, and the friends were like, oh, we lost him. And they just went on about their own business. And there's video of him kind of stumbling down the sidewalk and blah, blah, blah. And, but my only thought, and it was nothing against him. He's like this 6'5", fraternity boy, was that years ago, a little girl who was 13, Hanya Aguilar, was kidnapped from her driveway by a stranger, and it never even made any news except my page. Riley Strain. Thank you, Emily. I think he fell into the river too. There just doesn't make any other sense. So here you have and I think that's terrible. I have somebody going to college next year. Would I want to know where he was? Yes, absolutely. But do I think that my college student who disappears at night, this is Caleb Harris. The fact that a little girl was kidnapped and people saw it and it wasn't on the nightly news is horrifying to me. So anyway, that's just like a bonus. You get to hear about that. I will never get over that. I cannot get over that. And, you know, I think you could say, well, we knew something was going to happen to her. There still has not been a trial. I'm planning to go to Lumberton and sit with her mom at the trial, and the trial keeps getting pushed back because when you are poor and not an American, you don't matter as much in this country. So there you have it. Just go ahead and say it like it is. The video tonight is at 9 p.m. Subscribers, we will meet before. I don't think it's that the nightly news has an agenda, Melissa. I really don't. I think it is because when it's an Elizabeth Smart, who obviously was kidnapped in the night by somebody and was on the cover of People magazine within 6 days, Elizabeth Smart will say to you, the reason I was rescued is because I was white and blonde. I was pretty. I had this family. And I made the news, right? That's it. That's the only reason. If my daughter Blair, who's not blonde but has dark hair, if my daughter Blair, at the time, what happened with Hanya, she was waiting for the school bus, and she had turned on her aunt's car to turn the heat up because it was cold, and she was standing out there waiting for the bus, and a guy came by who her little sister saw her thrown in the car and drove away. And they called the police in Lumberton, which was a total cluster. And anyway, and the police came out and said, well, maybe she ran away with him. Oh, okay. And they didn't issue an Amber Alert for an hour and a half. By the time the Amber Alert came out, her killer was at someone's house washing his clothes. And you know why the Amber Alert didn't go out? Because someone didn't enter the numbers in the fax machine correctly and never checked to say, where's the Amber Alert? So I talked to the head of the Amber Alert system in North Carolina and said, tell me how this works. And the Amber Alert person was very quick to say, we knew it was coming. It takes us about 35 minutes to get it going. We knew it was coming. And it never came. So we called and said, are you going to send it to us? And they're like, oh, we sent it. They're like, well, we haven't gotten it. You know? And then they didn't have an interpreter all day until 2:30 that afternoon when the Spanish teacher got off from high school to talk to them. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. So I said at the time, well, what if I have a 14-year-old daughter. What if my daughter was out in our driveway waiting for the school bus in the morning, and I turned on the car to get it warmed up to maybe take one of my other kids to school. And my neighbor, who was a judge, I didn't live in a trailer park, but lived in a kind of a typical neighborhood downtown in a small town, and their neighbor in the trailer across the way saw it happen, and the police didn't believe them. Well, what if my neighbor, the judge, called the police and said, I just saw this happen. You know, the daughter of Dr. Adrian Wood has been kidnapped. Her father is an attorney. I've known him well. Do you think the police would show up and say, are you sure she didn't run away? No. And I asked my own police chief that. I said, do you think it would have taken an hour and a half to get that Amber Alert out? And he said, no, it wouldn't have. No, it wouldn't have. Do you think that my little North Carolina green-eyed girl wouldn't have been on the news, she would have. Again, just wasn't a priority. It wasn't a priority. Nobody called to see if the Amber Alert went out. It wasn't a priority. So I don't know why I'm saying that. I guess because people are asking about things, but don't believe everything that's spoon-fed you. You know, here we've talked about TikTok, and you might leave today and say, you know what, TikTok should be banned. Or you might say, you know what, I don't want TikTok banned. I want freedom of speech. I think we all should be thinking and recognize that we might not know everything about it, you know. And here I have these teenagers, and they think they're so smart. Like, well, you don't know. And I want to encourage them. Stop a minute and think about the other side. Pretend that you have to argue for and pretend you have to argue against. Because you have to have the ability to dissect what's happening and how it applies to you and your world. And don't just believe what's told to you. Really think about things, you know? And I do the same thing. My first reaction to TikTok when they were like, we're going to ban TikTok, which is what it's been called a ban, but it's really not a ban. It's a forced, it's like an arranged marriage, but they don't know who they're getting to marry, or divorce. Like, well, no, we want TikTok, but it's going to go over here. Who would benefit from that? Think about it. Who would not benefit from that? Just go through the motions in your brain and think. Because there's always another story behind the story, right? Is it really just about national security? Probably not. Is it really just about the election? Probably not. And some might disagree. And again, vote. Use your brain and vote. Thank you. Okay, so Derek has just asked a question. This is really important. The NC State Carolina game was on last night. And at the beginning of the video, Derek, I talked about the NC State Carolina game before we got into this whole like TikTok conundrum that's happening in the Senate today. My husband and son. So if you don't know the Wolfpack, if you're from North Carolina, the Wolfpack is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And in 1983, the Wolfpack, NC State, had to win the ACC tournament in order to go to the NCAA tournament. They did that, and then they won the NCAA tournament. Valvano was our coach. He was incredible. Now, last night, State made history because they won their fifth game in the fifth day. Played 5 games, 5 nights in a row. They beat Duke. They beat Virginia with a buzzer beater. And last night they beat Chapel Hill. Which Facebook would create an app where I could do this and it would do something amazing if I could do my wolf thing like that. And then if you did like Carolina's signal, you went like this. I'm so tickled. But my husband and son were like, we're going to have a party. It's going to be Sunday night. We're going to go get oysters. We should cook hot dogs. You could make that chili. I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We ain't having any party. We're getting home from a trip at 1 a.m. on Saturday. I'm not coming home in here and have y'all just trash the house and invite over who in the devil you can think of to invite. The last time they had a party to watch something, they took my TV and put it outside on the patio, and it sat there for a month. I was like, get the TV and put it back in our bedroom. So anyway, and then when I said, you're not having a party, they're like, well, you're not going to the party. Me, not going to the party in my house, which is fine because, you know, I have to put Amos to bed and I have a work video and I have a life other than basketball. Well, I'm doing the subscriber yesterday morning, subscriber video in Jackson Hole by the fire, drinking my coffee. And my followers, my subscribers are like, the game is tonight. I was like, no, it's not. It's Sunday. It was last night. Well, about the 30th person says it. And I go back to the room, which is trashed, and said to my people, you know, the game is tonight. Well, what are you talking about? You are crazy. It is always Sunday night.
Mommy, what is it? It's Easter.
It's what?
It's Easter.
Easter. Is it Easter today?
Yes.
We have 2 more weeks of school till Easter.
No school.
What are we going to do for Easter? We're going to hunt for eggs?
Yes.
Ooh. Are we going to get to see the Easter bunny?
Yes.
So fun. Are we going to fly in an airplane?
Yes.
Yay. To Key Biscayne. That's right. Go see your grandparents.
Amy and DB.
Amy and DB. That's right. You tell me.
No, thank you.
This is the conversation we had. So anyway, they were mad at me, and they realized that I was right. So last night, they spent some absurd amount to watch the game on the airplane, and then they hauled butt through the airport, and then they went to a Mexican restaurant and watched the game, and I listened to it on the radio, which I realized is not great for me because I don't know the names of all the players, so I was never sure who had them all. But State won, so everybody was happy. Now, when does the NCAA tournament start? Watching, in this house, if you aren't watching the game from the get-go or you walk downstairs, they will scream at you to get out and say that it is your fault that you're losing. Like, I'm the only, I have so much power that I can make their team lose just by my physical presence near a television. It starts Wednesday. Sissy. Okay, I'm off to exercise. Subscribers, I'll see you tonight before the 9 p.m. video. Hopefully at 8:30 p.m. subscribers, we'll have a little chitty chat. Talk about, I don't even know what. Something. Goodbye. Thanks for tuning in.